All right. We are live with our first ever episode of Good Morning Game Masters. This is a new podcast we're launching on Saturdays, a break from our regularly scheduled content where we're going to take a more, what I would describe as grassroots punk rock approach to TTRPGs. We're going to talk about the real stuff, the elephants in the room, the uncomfortable stuff, or the spicy stuff, whatever is top of mind. We're going to actually really get it talked about. And we've got some pretty cool plans for this. So this is going to be the first of what will hopefully be many. And John Haney is with us. Kelf is with us. They are both TTRPG enthusiasts in their own right. You've probably seen them on previous episodes. And they are counselors in the GM Philosophy Discord, very, very active in that community. So if you join our Discord, no doubt you will meet them at some point. But all right, with that being said, I would love to dive right into it. And actually, Kelf, I would actually be super, super happy if you would introduce this topic and maybe even guide us a little bit through it, because you're the one who came up with this one, and it's really, really good.
Yeah. So this was a topic that recently showed up over in the GMP Discord channel recently, surrounding the announcement of the coffee donations that were going live over there. So it kind of came up with this topic of paywalls and how much, indie content creators looking for ways to, financially support themselves through the content that they are creating. And this led to the thought, is the tabletop RPG industry ripping us off? Is it a scam? I mean, think about it like this. This hobby started off with a few rule books, some dice, and your imagination. Now you've got to pay for hardcover books, digital copies, VTT subscriptions, and like DLC expansion books. And funny enough, when I was researching this, I found a term called splat books, which apparently describes anything that's like a book for a tabletop RPG that's not necessary, but focuses on specific things within it. I guess it came back out in the 90s. That term was like used around World of Darkness games. But yeah, I've become like, my mind has started calling like anything that's not a rule book or like a settings guide as splat books now, just because of this research. But this also now leads into like homebrew mechanics on Patreon or, crowdfunding websites. So, at about the 70s, really, when this game came out, when tabletop RPGs and D&D really came out, that was obviously when monetizing this industry was going to become a huge facet for different companies. But the question is are publishers justified in charging more, or are they simply exploiting game masters and players who feel like they have to keep up with the latest releases? Should we just pirate everything instead of paying for overpriced PDFs and virtual dice rolls? And again, as I mentioned before, what about indie creators like the GM Philosopher or even myself in my own time? Are we helping keep the game alive, or simply setting up our own paywalls like the big publishers? So that's what we're going to be talking about today. We got some topics we're going to go over, and yeah, I think I think to probably get us started off, I want to lean into, do we think that publishers are charging more for less nowadays, and is the price of the books that they're putting out justified?
Okay, so here's the thing. When you're saying, listen, when I first saw this topic, here's the thought that I had, and it's and this is such a this is such a a hard thing for me to navigate sometimes, but in the marketing world, we have a phrase: "Marketers ruin everything," which is, I don't think, untrue. It's like that's what happened with email. When email first became a thing, it was like, oh, this is so cool. I can email my friends. It's so much faster than mail. I don't know if you guys are you guys probably remember the beginning of email, which is wild.
Yep.
It's so wild to think that there was a time pre-email, and then now we had email. But then marketers came in, and then you started getting spam, right? So it's like that was a beautiful thing for like a little while, and then it became a marketing nightmare, kind of, to the point where some people are like, I don't even want to give out my email because I'm going to get spammed by marketers.
Yeah.
Okay, so when we come to TTRPGs, there is a big question I think that looms. It's like why is anyone trying to make this a business? I think that is a super relevant question, and which is ironic for me to say, because I literally make and sell TTRPG products, which I think is something that then we should get into like later. But I think that's a valid question. And so then, because TTRPGs can be played with a notebook and a pencil and some dice, like literally you can get some dice. You don't actually need a notebook, but a notebook adds a massive dimension to what you can do, like in tracking a character and stuff. But those things alone, like, you can play TTRPGs with just those things. I know, because I did it for years and years. I was very anti D&D in the beginning, because I was like, who wants to spend all this money? Who wants to clutter up the game experience with all these rules? That was I pushed back against D&D for a long time in the beginning, and it was for those reasons specifically. So I want to put that question out there and just let it sit as we talk about this. Why is anyone trying to make a business out of this at all? And I do have like an answer, kind of, in my way, like, and I think also, speaking for a bigger company like Wizards, I'm going to say that I see a place, and I see some good that comes from it. But anyway, that's my 2 cents immediately right away.
Yeah, I'm so just going to weigh in real quick. I mean, why do people pay for anything? Why does anybody write anything? Why does anybody create anything and then put it out there on the market? I mean, so that's, if there's an author, he writes a book, he puts it out there, whether it's online, print copies, whatever, and it's just a fictional work. Or let's say somebody is writing historical analysis of whatever, they put work into it. And they put something out there, they want to get compensated for it. Let's say that work does really well. And then, well, okay, so you write a sequel and you put that out there. Now, maybe if the first book was really popular, you could charge maybe a little bit more for that sequel. Or maybe so as far as are they exploiting? I don't know about that. I think they're playing a price game. They're certainly trying to make money. They're trying to make a living. I mean, that's what corporations do. They want to make their shareholders happy. And at the end of the day, we talk about corporate greed and we yell about it and everything. But that's almost an unfair argument, because that's putting a faceless, almost like a stormtrooper mentality on it. You're saying, oh, corporations, blah, blah, blah. But those corporations are made up of people that are trying to make a living. Are they overreaching a little bit into our wallets? Possibly. My answer to that is, well, then don't pay for it. And I'm not saying pirate either. Well, I think we'll get to that later, but then don't pay for it. If it's not worth it to you, then don't buy it. Okay, so like the books, the Hunger Games trilogy, when that came out a long time ago now, it seems like yesterday to me. I'm old. That came out. I read the first book. I did. I bought it. I read it. A lot of people were raving about it. To me, it was all right. It was okay. I didn't pay for the second or third book. I didn't see the value in paying for the second or the third book. I read them eventually. But I didn't pay for them. So this is something where, are they overreaching? Are they exploiting? No, they're creating a product. They're putting that product on the market. Like it or not, that's capitalism. That's not exploitation. That's capitalism. And like it or not, that's the system we have. So I don't think it's exploiting, but I do think that certain companies they might be charging more for less. That question, yeah, I do think they are charging more for less these days. Not saying the new rule set is terrible. I flipped through the free rules yesterday. I found a PDF and found the free rules online. I do think that the new organization is great. Was it justified in the price, especially the price hike?
Yeah.
I don't know. Paper is more expensive, supposedly. So, like, I guess maybe. But if the art was produced by AI and not by artists, then maybe not.
Yeah,
They're not having to pay artists.
That was a big issue for
So,
a bit
there. I would not define it as exploitation. Charging more for less, yeah, probably. But to me, that's not exploitation. That's marketing. That's capitalism.
Yeah, no, that's reasonable. I mean, I definitely, when you said about 2024, the rules refresh, that was definitely one of those things that when that was coming out, I was like, oh, so what are they like? This is going to be the new edition. Everybody talking about, is this 5.5? Is this 6E? What is it going to be? Are they going to completely redo it? And seeing now where it's like a handful of rules changes that a lot of the community has already been doing for a while, bonus action, potions and stuff like that, just making it, codified into the rules. That was one of those things that I wasn't a huge fan of, because you are just kind of paying for to get those books. You are just kind of paying for what you've already been doing. You're kind of paying for your own work in a way. But to that degree, or to that point, there is always going to be, at least to some degree, considering they have done this, the SRD. When they put the SRD into Creative Commons, they can't take that back, and it's always going to be free now, and you can play 95% of the game with that alone. And I think that is at least a benefit in itself. But yeah, no, I do agree. I know this is obviously a very the concept of, is it exploitative? Yeah, definitely more driving some drama with those terms. But yeah, I do think in recent times there's been an overwhelming sense that there's not a lot more content that is coming out of what's being published. And I will be completely upfront about this in my own perspective. I buy more than I ever should. Ever since I've been in the tabletop industry, I buy books by the dozen. I buy bundles. I have bought almost everything that WotC has put out. So I'm definitely in that pool of, in video games terms, I'd be a whale. I'd be the one who's buying those monthly subscriptions and coin packs and stuff. So I have tried to find the value in them, and I think there is value in them. But so many times I look through my repository, my library, and trying to find something that I might be needing, a random table or an item generator or something like that. And I have 10 different books on it, and they all have very similar things in it. And that's always going to be one thing that sticks in the back of my mind, is how many random book tables do we need before you find the one that you actually care about?
Right. Well, if you keep paying for it, if you find value in it, there's like this weird disconnect between value and price.
Sure.
Okay. So like, if you're finding value in it, then sure, that justify the price tag.
Yep.
Like, I'm not going to buy the 2024 rules. I'm just not. It's too similar. It's the free rules, the SRD, are all out there. If y'all want to buy the 2024 rules, sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just saying I don't see enough value in it to justify the price. If
Sure.
you do, go for it. But if people are yelling about exploitation, well, then don't pay for it. You know.
So here's a question, John, and I want to ask you. And I kind of like I didn't directly answer your initial question, Kelf, because I had made like a statement.
Yeah.
Instead of like, but I haven't actually ruled my opinion on it. But like, so John, I want to ask you a question following up on that. And then, and I just want to make sure, Kelf, we're talking about, have we gotten into the subtopic of overpriced rulebooks expansions?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's where we're at.
Okay. Very good. So here's a question, John. Fifth edition, you are playing 5.14.
Yeah.
But 5.24, you're saying, I'm just not going to buy it. I don't have a need. So here's a question. Should it have even come out? Like for that matter, should we have stayed? Should we have said, I have like a huge collection of third edition books. Mm-hmm. By releasing products, and I think this is really, it comes down to the core of it. Is this just a cash grab? Keep putting out new books. Is it a cash grab, or is there legitimate value that comes from it? I think that I would answer there is value that comes from it, but I think that is a real question. I think that's a real question.
I think the term cash grab puts like a sort of automatically a negative spin on it. It automatically makes people like, oh no, they're reaching into our wallets, they're stealing from us. Well, no, it's a business. They're coming out with a new product. I mean, like, I don't have the same phone that I first bought. Does my original smartphone? Yeah, I could plug it in and it still works. But I upgraded because I saw the value in upgrading my phone. Still not a great phone, but whatever. And so I view a new edition as a similar thing. It's not a cash grab. It's a business. And they are repackaging things. From what I understand, the class organization is a lot better. The classes did get a slight upgrade. They got rebalanced a little bit. From what I hear, the new Dungeon Master Guide is fantastic. The organization of it, they include things that weren't included before, and all kinds of stuff. The new monster manual, I've heard mixed reviews on, but still, like, this is it. I wouldn't term it as a cash grab. I view it as a business. This is something that they're doing to, that they have to further their business. They are pushing the hobby. They are generating interest in the hobby because it has the new toy mentality. You have the people that came in maybe 1 or 2 years after 5e came out, and they are starting to feel like, okay, we found the quirks. We found the little exploits. I'm using it in a gaming term now, but we found the power builds. We found all that, and people are like, well, what about a refresh? What about to use gamer terms, like, you played Skyrim for a while, you found the quirks. So what did they do? They made patches for it. And I feel like this is kind of a patch. This is an upgrade. This is something. So is there value in it? Sure. Yeah. For a lot of tables, absolutely. So there is value. And if you see that value, then the price is justified.
Yeah. So just to I feel like to put a button on this particular subtopic, because we have quite a few that I want to get through. I'm going to say this. I'm just going to put this out there. The socialist part of me, the part of me that wants to be like, we should all work together to like progress things better, thinks we should have stayed with like third edition and just kept building on it. That's how I feel. But I would almost dare say the capitalist part of me, and the part of me that loves like innovation, celebrates the new editions. This is why I bought 5.14, the whole set. That's why I've bought 2024, and I love 2024, and I'm probably going to buy the new set too. So I'm a little bit torn. Like, do you see what I'm saying? Like, there's a part of me that thinks, why didn't we just keep building on third edition? Like, we could have just kept building on it, but there's not as much money in it, but there's also not as much innovation there. And the innovation, I think, is valuable. So no, my final answer to that is, I don't think publishers in the big, we're talking about the big ones, well-known ones, are charging more for less. Yeah. I don't think so. I was not unhappy with the money I spent on 2024 Player's Handbook in any way. But anyway,
I'm the same way. I got the set. It's
Yeah, I'm not mad about it. I'm not switching there. I mean, because I mean, honestly and candidly, I'm thinking about switching to a different system anyway that better suits my game and my world. That's why I don't see the value in upgrading to a new 5.5, 5.24, whatever we want to call it. I don't see the value in that, but I'm not mad about people that do. By all means, go ahead, upgrade, spend the money.
Now, Josh, you actually made a really good point with what you said there about third edition, that you have a bunch of third edition books and that you think about them just building onto that. So in that respect, do you feel better about how Wizards treated 5e 2014 and into 5e 2024, where they didn't say, okay, everything in these old books is now completely out of line and you have to learn a whole new system? They built upon it with a few, with a few like quality of life improvements. Is that what you wish that they would have done with third edition?
So there's a part of me that would say yes, but it's the part of me that sees all of those books and thinks those are awesome books. And now there's a part of me that feels kind of like it's just gone now because it's so different from fifth edition. So yes, there's a part of me that wants to say that, but ultimately I have to say that no, ultimately I'm very happy. Ultimately, I was happy with what they did with fourth edition. I was like, this is cool. This is new. I like this. And then I was happy with what they did with fifth edition. I like the innovation. I think that I think that the game would stagnate for me if it kept building on third edition. And so that's kind of like, there's a part of me that almost is at war with myself about that, because I kind of think to myself, well, but there's all this awesome third edition material. There's so much of it. Not that it's like not usable, but no. So to answer your question, I do like what they've done. And I don't necessarily even feel like it always has to all fit together. A completely new version, I'm okay with. I'm surprisingly okay with it. 2024 has revitalized my interest in a lot of the classes in a pretty big way. Just because it's so different from what I was used to. I've played a third edition fighter so many times. I've run third edition clerics so many times. And then when the 5.14 came out, it's like, oh, this is new. This is awesome. This makes me more excited about it. And then now 5.24, I feel the same way. Bard, like in 5.24, I had GM third edition Bard dozens of times. It's like, okay, you're gonna do a Bard, you're gonna do this, you're gonna do this. But now it's like, oh, this is cool. New subclasses, new stuff, new way of playing the game. I really like it. So bam, that's my final answer. That's my final answer. Okay, let's move on to another subtopic. Kelf, guide us to the next subtopic.
Yeah, so talking about big publishers, you got Wizards of the Coast, who sits, I would say, at the top, considering. So considering Wizards of the Coast is a multi-billion-dollar industry, they obviously want to have a way to put out their resources in a digital format because we live in a digital age. So you have stuff like D&D Beyond, but then you also have other digital platforms like Roll20 and Foundry. So this presents us with the Digital Paywall. Are VTT tools like D&D Beyond, Roll20, and Foundry making tabletop RPGs more accessible or simply more expensive? And I think John made a really good comment in the talking about the publisher side of things that this kind of leans into as well, from a similar perspective of, if you don't want to use virtual tabletop stuff or digital stuff, you don't have to. It's not there. But it makes life so much easier and convenient in a lot of ways.
Yeah. No. So here's the thing about those. Here's how I see the VTT stuff. That is like cool, innovative technology, right? Like to me, that's a lot different than re-releasing a book. To me, that's almost like different conversation, because it's almost like, it's like having a cool app that does a new thing that is legitimately handy, that legitimately nobody has done.
Mhm.
And trying to theater of the mind everything over online is actually kind of unsustainable for a lot of games. And VTTs solve that problem, I think. So I think they make the game more accessible, and they do cost money. And to be honest, I think they should cost money, because the developers who develop those things make my life so much easier. I bought, I used free Owlbear Rodeo. Once I realized exactly what I could do with it, I bought the premium version, and I felt very, very good about it. I was like, this is such a good use of my money. This is going to make playing online so much better. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah, I do agree with that, because I use a virtual tabletop as well. When I run my games, I use one called Encounter Plus. It's an iPad-based app, and it is free for as an encounter manager and a combat tracker, but there is a paid model for it that I have subscribed into, and I have been in that ecosystem for the last 6 or 7 years since it's been in beta development. And I look at something like D&D Beyond, which has its new maps feature. You have to pay a monthly subscription to get into that in order to have access to that. Roll20 is free. And same with Owlbear Rodeo. Owlbear Rodeo has free models. And I think those do make it extremely accessible for new folks that are trying to get into this, or folks that might not have the opportunity to play in person around them, especially. I run my games in person using my iPad, because I have a small TV that I take with me to show my players the maps, because I find it more convenient, because just like you said, Josh, running theater of the mind through a digital format does not work. It's very unsustainable, because unfortunately, when people are sitting down in front of a computer, even the best players, their minds are going to wander. They're going to see other things on their computer, or God forbid, I mean, right now, you guys can't see my hands. I can't see Josh's hands. For all I know, he has his phone, just out of the corner doing who knows what. So
there's also distances to consider. What's the point in the technical aspects of the lightning bolt spell if you don't know who is in a straight line?
Exactly. And that's always, and that's always going to be a factor. So virtual tabletops are a great tool. But then, and again, I like Roll20, I like Owlbear Rodeo, and I think they're great because they're accessible. D&D Beyond, you need a subscription for what they offer. But then I look at something like Foundry, and while I understand that Foundry is a one-time buy and has a big community that does provide a lot of things open source, there is a lot of there's a lot of paid modules on there that, to me, I think does lean into that aspect of, are you paying simply for the convenience of it? Like, how much is locked behind that convenience aspect?
Yeah.
There was a comment about that. Here, I'm going to bring that back up. Go ahead, John. Sorry.
For me, VTTs and all that stuff, to me, that the answer is simple. It makes it more accessible. My core group right now, 2 of them live within a 20-minute drive of me, but another one lives an hour and a half away. Another one lives 4 hours away, and another one lives an entire day's drive away. But we can all play together twice a month because of VTTs and Discord. That's why we can actually even have a group, and we enjoy playing together and everything, so that it does make it more accessible. I feel like what Josh said is very relevant too. I use the free version of Owlbear Rodeo. I have never come up against a feature where I'm like, oh, I wish I had that, but I don't. The only one is the music playing. That's the one thing that I don't have that I wish I had, but there's ways around that too. I can stream a video through the Discord and get music to my players that way if I really wanted to. Mostly they play their own music because they have different musical tastes. So they to me, that makes it more accessible. But once again, that's like, do you see the value in a paid version? Josh has no regrets about paying for the paid version of Owlbear, and the live stream game looks great. I'm sure it feels great to the players. Even if he wasn't streaming it, that has value. So the value versus price thing, worth it for some people. For me, I don't really need it. So I'm not going to go spend extra money for it if I don't need it. So to me, that's an accessibility thing, because there are convenient, free, awesome options. I cannot sing Owlbear's praises enough. Like, Owlbear Rodeo is on point with what they're doing. Their business model is great. Their user interface is fantastic.
The premium is actually really cheap too. It's like
and
$3 a month.
Yeah, it's not bad. It really isn't bad. So if somebody wants it, but then you get the D&D Beyond, you have the subscription for that. They have the maps now, Foundry, Tailspire. I've heard of all these different VTTs that are incredible, and I'm like, those are cool. I don't really personally need one for what I do, but if somebody wants it, if they like the 3D importable minis and character sheets and all that stuff, go for it. You know, I'm not mad about it. I don't think the VTTs have to make the hobby more expensive. So, in fact, it could make it cheaper because you don't have to drive to each other's houses.
That is true. And one of the things about the digital kind of TTRPG ecosystem that I look at is the like talking about making things cheaper, or should make things cheaper, is stuff around, you know, digital books, and like Josh mentioned before about, you know, digital formats of books and reissuing them. I know one of the things that I have griped about for years is, why is it that when I buy a physical version of a book, why can't I just get the digital version for free?
Yeah, Mark in the chat just literally said that just a little bit ago.
Exactly. Yeah. That's something that has not sit right with me. You know, it's as somebody who is a prolific video game enthusiast, I have always been of the mindset that, sure, if I go to GameStop, if I go to Target or Best Buy and I buy a video game that's $60, I'm paying for the game development, I'm paying for the, you know, the marketing, I'm paying for them to ship it to that store and for some guy named Chad to sell it to me. But if I'm buying that straight off of Steam, I should not be paying for that shipping, and I should not be paying for Chad's lunch. I should be paying for the developers, and I should be paying for that. So where is that cost taken into account, and why is there not some kind of discount? So, and I will admit, and I give Wizards credit, you can buy a digital version of their books on Beyond for a little bit cheaper than what you would pay for a physical copy. But when it comes to print medium, why is it not simply just you buy a physical copy, you get the digital copy? And I understand that there could be logistical issues with that. How do you do it? Do you put a code in the book? Do you link something? Because what happens to the used book market at that point? If you're buying something secondhand, or God forbid, somebody goes to the store and, you know, rips off the little gift card, you know, hidden barcode thing, and you go to redeem your free book and it's not there. So I understand there's a logistical hurdle in the way, but that's a hurdle that I think should have been addressed years ago. Like, especially for companies that want to move into a more digital platform. Wizards has talked a lot about moving stuff into digital platforms and really focusing on D&D Beyond. So why are they not meshing those two and making it something for the folks that do want more of the physical medium? They want those physical books to then have that sort of nudge, or at least an ease of access into a digital format.
You know, so I think there's a question at the root of some of these things that is like, it's a question of like economics and also marketing and business, which is like, okay, so for example, digital is so attractive because the cost of production is so much lower, right? It's you develop it, but then you sell it, and there's really no material product you have to keep making and selling. You just sell, and then a subscription model is highly attractive because because the lifetime value of a customer goes up so much higher, and your cost of conversion for the same cost of conversion, instead of selling one book to someone, you're selling a subscription to them, and then you'll keep making money over a certain amount of period, not like lifetime. Probably there's going to be a churn rate, but like, so this model is very attractive. And it has become very popular. I've noticed in the D&D space. It's also become popular with influencers, which actually leads us to another subtopic. I see our next subtopic is very relevant to this.
Yep.
But here's another thing to consider. And I always think about this partly because I am a business, like I have a small business trying to make it on my own merits as a business person. You have to take those factors into account. Things like cost of customer conversion, lifetime value of a customer. These types of things are very important. However, you can go too far. You can lose sight of mission and only chase dollars. And that's when it gets to be weird. And I feel like that's when businesses or influencers or publishers lose touch with their audience. And but at the same time, if you go all mission, if you want to make this beautiful book and it's just the masterpiece of a lifetime, but then like a few people buy it one time and then that's it. That's everything you've worked for. Now the wave is coming gone, and that wave barely paid your rent for 1 month. What are you going to do now? So it's like there's a hard line now. In a big company like Wizards, it makes a lot of sense for them to use a recurring income model, because I have a feeling that, and a digital one, because I have a feeling that physical book sales, I don't actually know what the stats are, but I have a feeling the physical book sales are getting like more expensive to pull off because everything's getting like so much more expensive.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. But anyway, so that's just some things to consider. And part of it is just ye old inflation. And I don't mean like even political in just America. I just mean like in human existence, things kind of inflate over time. And then also, so there's like a rising cost of living kind of. So it becomes more difficult to pay Jeff in marketing a living wage if a certain threshold isn't crossed on the bottom line when the business is selling products. If the business slashes prices too much, and they try to say, well, we're just going to give it away as cheaply as possible, there comes a point where now their employees don't have money, and they don't have money to like develop new things. So anyway, I'm just saying that it's like there's two sides of that.
Sure.
And I guess my final point that I'm trying to make there is I definitely feel like it's a hard line to balance, but you have to keep mission, and you have to keep value for the customer really, really in perspective. And then you have to find a way to make that monetarily viable. And that does look a little wonky and weird sometimes. I think especially for influencers, actually, that starts to look a little weird. But anyway, so with that being said, I feel like that's a great segue into our next topic, actually. And Kelf, I feel like you should introduce our next topic.
So speaking of indies and a little bit more ease of access, we're gonna jump into crowdfunding and the Kickstarter aspect. Is our Kickstarter RPGs pushing innovation, or are they simply pre-orders disguised as creativity? I pulled this information up. It's on enworld.org, and I was looking at this last night. The top 10 within the top 10 most profitable and backed Kickstarters around the tabletop RPG, the top 4, in fact, are complete standalone tabletop RPG systems, with Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere, the Avatar Legends role-playing game, the Gloomhaven Grand Festival, and the MCDN RPG. But after that, we have the Crooked Moon from Legends of Evantris, which is a YouTube live play series.
I really like Legends of Evantris.
It's great. Really I love them. They're hilarious. We have Ryoko's Guide from D&D Shorts at number 6. And then we have Steinhardt's Guide to the Eldritch Hunt by Monkey DM at number 7. And each one of those has earned upwards of $2.5, $3.5, and $4 million. So, but I think the question is there too much to that? Like, how much of this industry, when it comes to crowdfunding, what are we really getting out of it? And it kind of, in a way, goes back to the original topic of, are publishers charging more for less? In a way, how much innovation can there be, and is this something that the industry is reliant on to stay fresh so that we can keep pushing further and further and further? Or is that, I mean, how many of these actually, are worth it, and what is that worth to you?
I think there's a trust relationship there. I would never kickstart or back or whatever anything that I didn't already know and trust that creator.
Sure.
I'm not gonna go back somebody's new system if I have never seen any content that I like, or I've never enjoyed any of their 5e homebrew stuff, or if I've never done that. So I feel like that's a sort of buyer beware thing. Like you have to take that into account. Honestly, is a Kickstarter just a cash grab disguised as creativity? Maybe it would be really easy to pull scams as a Kickstarter, and you rake in a bajillion dollars, and say, like, oh yeah, well, I have to pay developers, and I have to pay artists, and I have to pay publishers, and I have to pay this, and I have to pay that people and those people. And then you churn out something that's just a really quick 50-page print-friendly PDF, and everyone's like, oh, well, that was a scam. Well, yeah, that was a scam. But that's why people like to do test copies. I've watched a couple of YouTubers who have done Kickstarters, and they have a test copy. They're like, look, this is what you're getting. This is what you're getting. This is what you're getting. But if somebody's like, hey, fund my Kickstarter so I can produce this great new RPG, and you have no proof that they're actually doing that, you have no proof that they actually have a team and anything, well, then don't back that one. Yeah, that one's obviously a scam. Like, that's just be a little bit smarter about it.
Yeah. I know Onyx Path Publishing. When I was at PAX U this year, they had one of those test books where people could come and see what it was that they were aiming on publishing, and then they were going to be doing a pre-order and a Kickstarter. I think personally, I again, full transparency, I have kickstarted well over 100 projects. I am what is considered on Kickstarter. My profile on there is a super backer because of how many I have backed and how much I have backed. But that being said, I do think there is a lot of fluff on there. Mm-hmm. I think whenever you go through Kickstarter, you will find those handful of awesome pieces of content that do fill a certain niche that the community is looking for. One that I have gladly been a part of and supported was Stibble's Codex to Companions. This is something that my players still use to this day. I had a player who wanted to play a Pokemon trainer, and we kind of edited a lot of what was in here because it was available, and I had this book, and it offers a bunch of stat blocks and stuff. Could I have gone online and found somebody else who used their own system and taken that? Could I have gone online and made my own stat blocks? Yes. This all comes back to convenience. It's more convenient that somebody else did that pre-work, and you're paying for that. But I think one of the problems that I personally have with Kickstarter is, like I said, there's a lot of fluff on there that ends up being, there's so many that feel so samey. I cannot tell you how many times I've looked through Kickstarter and I've seen, 7 or 8 different, expansions or source books where it's like, 50 NPCs, or 100 unique taverns and stuff like that. And how many times do I need to see that? And on top of that, the biggest issue that I have with Kickstarter is that stuff on there just takes forever. And I get that there is a development cycle on that stuff and that there is time and effort that needs put into it. And you are getting it on the ground floor. You're giving the developer that initial income so that they can move forward with production. But I have had so many situations where I have backed something on Kickstarter thinking to myself, this is something I could use soon. And then a year and a half goes by and I've completely forgotten about it.
A year and a half? It can take that long on Kickstarter?
I mean, they can take normally they can take anywhere from like six months to a year, if not even longer.
I've never backed a Kickstarter. I've never launched one. So wow, that's news to me. I was thinking like, wow, maybe be long, like 3 months. That sounds like a long time.
No, generally speaking, I would say a year and a half might be a bit more of an exaggeration. But I have backed Kickstarters. Okay, a perfect example of this. I don't have the date that it started, but Ryoko's, not Ryoko's. Here it is. Steinhardt's Guide to the Eldritch Hunt was first, or just ended in August 2022. That was when the Kickstarter campaign ended. And normally, Kickstarter campaigns last for 30 days. They might have a late pledge period that's for about 2 weeks after that. That is still not in full completion. And one of the problems with that is that they do stretch goals. So a developer or a content creator will come out and say, hey, I want to put out this content. I want to put out this rule book or this setting or what have you. And if we hit $1,000, we're going to do this. And if we hit 2,000, we're going to do this. And if we hit 3,000, and they'll put out all these things because the idea is that they want to entice people to back it. And they want people to back it at higher levels so that they can hit those stretch goals. But when you start to do that, you are systematically building onto what you already have to develop. So if you're already looking at a rule book or a setting book, that is a lot of work that has to be done. But if one of your stretch goals is that you're going to add 50 monsters, if you hit, $50,000, that's 50 monsters that you now have to stat block and play test and manage and publish. And it adds time. And like I said, Steinhardt's Guide was one of those. Ryoko's Guide to the Yokai Realms, that campaign ended October 2023. And I don't know if that's even fully completed, because another problem that I have with Kickstarter is that Kickstarter does not actually manage the rewards side of these crowdfunding projects.
Yeah. It's like by the developer, isn't it? Like the person who ran it.
So there's different websites that you can do these through. The main one that they have a bit of a partnership, or at least is more common, is called BackerKit. So when you sign up for a Kickstarter, the person who made that Kickstarter will send you a link to a BackerKit once the campaign is over, and that's where you manage like your shipping address and what it is that you're backing and stuff like that. And so now you kind of have to follow two different things. You got to follow the updates on Kickstarter, and then you got to follow the updates on BackerKit, because BackerKit, if you're getting digital content, that might be where it is. But sometimes it's just sent directly to your email. And for all you know, it's being sent to you from their personal email. So it might get lost in the shuffle or in the spam. And it could be like what I've dealt with, where I'll sit down. I will dedicate an hour or two every so many months just to sit down and see, hey, did I actually get the stuff that I paid for? I dropped, $30 on this book, or I, put $50 towards this project. Did I actually get anything out of it?
Yeah. Okay, now coming at this Kickstarter thing from a slightly different angle, I want to give an example. So I made The Haunting at Ashburrow, which is my adventure module, right? I love this. I designed this to be a print medium book, which it is, and it's available in hardcover and softcover. No, with that being said, I spent months on this book, right? I spent months. Now, the good thing about this is that everything required to create this book was within my professional purview. I laid out all the graphics. I did all the writing. Everything that had to be done, I did it, but I had to grind. And so the good news is that I had no upfront like cost, really. I mean, a Canva subscription and and Google Docs, and I was pretty much good to go. Because I had the knowledge and I was able to do it. So that's one thing. But second thing is it's risky to go for print medium because you can design for an ebook a lot cheaper and easier than you can to design print medium. With print medium, you have to like think about the margins a lot more specifically. You have to like lay everything out very specifically. You have to order proof versions to make sure it all fits right. So now, but this was like a small launch, right? It's still expensive for me. The most expensive product I've ever created in terms of like the cost of development. It cost me months and months of hours, literally 7 days a week, right? Working on this book before it was ready. And then I had another month of getting a proof copy, making sure it looked good, trying to get the price as low as possible because every single page it's in there drives up the cost of production, and then trying to like establish a good profit margin. At the end of the day, while I think this like soft cover version, I think it sells for something like $30 and it's nice and glossy. I make like a $10 profit on it at the end of the day because the costs are so high, and it's print on demand. So that's another thing. I'm just doing print on demand. I'm not ordering a huge, if I were to bulk order it, it would be cheaper. Right.
Through drive-through, right?
No, it's through Blurb. I use Blurb today. But okay, now with that being said, that was all risk, and the number of copies that I've sold of this was like if I calculate how much money I made per hour, the months I spent developing it, at this point, it was abysmal. It was terribly bad. Now I've sold and this is the wild thing. The ebook sales of this book far outpaced the physical copies because it's so much cheaper, right?
Yeah.
Had I just I would have been months ahead almost if I would have just done ebook. Also though, what if I had kickstarted this beforehand and then I found out no one was interested in it? Would I have still developed it? This is why I didn't do Kickstarter, because I made this book because I wanted to make it. And the fact that it hasn't sold, it has sold, but it's my worst selling book to date. Like literally I've created little bitty ebooks for $3 that have earned me way more than this book has.
So to that point, real fast, I do actually want to point out a comment that Stacy made a bit ago in the chat, where she said Kickstarter show what people want. I actually think that what you just said is a very valid point of, if you had done that on Kickstarter, would you have gone through with it? Because you can do, and it is most of the time it'll offer when people are doing TTRPG content on there, you will have a digital only version, a print only version, or a combo version where you pay a little bit more to get both. And I think there is validity in what you're saying of, if your Kickstarter was not funded, would you have then thought to yourself, okay, is this something that I want to do? And is this something I want to continue with? I think that's a super valid point.
It is a valid point. And I think that, especially if you're going to be putting like $10,000 worth of capital into a project.
Yeah.
So my launch is very small. So the risk is several hours of my time a day for 4 months. But to be really honest, I'm still glad I made the product.
Yeah.
But if I was going to spend $40,000 launching a product, I would want to know it was going to succeed. So Kickstarter is a very attractive option for me.
So that's where Kickstarter comes in, because it makes things possible that wouldn't otherwise be possible. Like we would not have one of the fastest growing TTRPGs, Shadow Dark. We wouldn't have it without Kickstarter. It would be Kelsey Dion's homebrew version of D&D, at her table. That's all we would, and the world would never know that Shadow Dark even existed.
Yeah.
However, it's one of the fastest growing, like rules light systems out there, and we have it because of Kickstarter. And so, like what your product there, Haunting of Ashburrow, was, it's great, but that was a passion project.
Yeah.
What about if this was truly a business? What if it wasn't a passion project? You're just trying to turn out modules, but costs and everything. Kelsey Dion had to batch print, thousands upon thousands of copies of Shadow Dark at a time in order to fulfill orders. She never could have done that on her own personal bankroll. So Kickstarter was the way to go. And so I think, back to the original question, scams, sure. There's plenty of people out there that are using Kickstarter to scam people. On the other side, we wouldn't have a lot of these third-party modules. We wouldn't have a lot of these third-party systems. We wouldn't have a lot of these third-party DLC type, what were they called, splat books? We wouldn't have those if it weren't for Kickstarter. And here's the cool thing. I think that keeps the bigger corporations honest a little bit. Think about Lego. Like Lego, when we were kids, like they were toys, so maybe a little bit on the higher end. But then, like, when I was a teenager, I would go to a store and find Lego sets had like doubled, tripled, quadrupled in price. Why was that? There was nobody else making an interlocking brick system. Nobody else was making it. However, in the past 15 years, their prices haven't really gone up that much. Why? Because other companies started making interlocking brick systems. And so this is what Kickstarter is allowing for the TTRPG hobby. It's allowing smaller corporations or even non-corporations. It's allowing people like GM Philosopher, who's like passion projecting, modules and supplements. It allows those types of creators to create good content. I don't back Kickstarters personally. That's a financial decision, though, not a moral decision or whatever. That's purely financial. But I'm all for it because that's going to keep, the Lego in the room of just keep pumping up their prices because they have no competition. Kickstarter is allowing a viable method for those competitors, for those third-party indie punk rock grassroots creators to do what they do and still feed their families.
And that was the whole thing about the OGL. If we go back onto those dark days, the whole reason why the OGL debacle happened was because Wizards of the Coast saw the viability of platforms like Kickstarter and BackerKit and crowdfunding systems and wanted to have a piece of that pie in addition to what they were already doing. They wanted to change how the OGL was worded so that anything that was made using the not the SRD, but was using that published material had to pay them a certain profit, had to pay them, a fee, because they looked at those Kickstarters that did crazy dollars. I mean, Monkey DM's Steinhardt's Guide to the Eldritch Hunt, that was such a blowaway success that he had to go dark for like 3 months. He had to go radio silent for 3 months because he just could not handle the amount of money he got and how big the project expanded. And he had to hire a publishing team. He had to hire writers and editors and artists and all the stuff that he did not initially expect to have to go so in depth with. And Wizards saw that and they wanted a piece of that pie, and they took their shot, and obviously it backfired. The community stood strong against them. But that is something that they have tried to eke their way into, and I'm really glad that it didn't work, because I don't think we would have had the positive indie community that we have now if that would have happened.
Now, speaking of recurring pricing models, I want to take this opportunity. It's the turn of the hour here. We're getting ready to turn into a couple new topics. If John and Kelf are still down to talk for a little longer.
Definitely.
I want to give a big shout out to our first gold supporter on Ko-Fi, Craig. Craig, thank you so much for supporting the channel and the content here at GM Philosophy. Here at GM Philosophy, we are all about helping game masters, empowering game masters to run games that are more fun for themselves and for others. We have a lot of big plans, and let me say this. I want to say this. There is an element of goodwill that comes into these things from the place of the business, and I think that, John, when I heard you say I don't back Kickstarters, there was a little thought popped in my mind. It's like, it's because you haven't seen one that was worth the money to you, which is very fair. That's very fair. Yeah. We're gonna pay for the things that matter to us, and I think it's important for businesses to use their power. And when I say power, I mean influence. Eyeballs are power. When a million people see your YouTube video, this is a great deal of power. And if you put something out, you'll probably sell a certain amount of it if you have that much trust. And I think that what it really comes down to a lot of times is integrity. And there's a really interesting, as we turn the hour here, I would like to follow a conversation that was going on in the thread that I think is really interesting. And I'm going to try to find it at the beginning. Mr. Vincent said, oh, wait, is it okay to want, oh, no, I'm sorry. Devious Heart said, we really are in it for love and not profit. This was on the heels of me talking about Haunting at Ashburrow, which was a passion project. I created that book, and to be really honest, even if I would have known how it was going to sell, I still would have made it because I love that book. I literally got chills as I was writing that book. It was a work of love for me. And the fact that it hasn't sold as good as some other things, it's like, whatever. I don't care. I still love it. I still want people to read it if they want to. The number of people who read that book, even if small, that is my favorite feedback to receive across all the books I've read, because it's like, oh yes, someone's going to read this. I want to hear what they're going to say about it. Now, with that being said, Kelf mirrored this in his comment. I feel that we do it for the passion. Then Mr. Vincent came in and said, oh wait, is it okay to want money? And then also followed up with, who is this we? And I think that we are going down a really interesting thread here. Devious Hearts replied, oh, not you, Mr. Vincent. That we is us, not you. And then damn cap locks. But then we come down to now it's a we and them issue. So everything someone has passion for should be available for free. Now, Devious Hearts then comes in and says, dear Mr. Vincent, you should get in where you fit in and make what you can. But there are some of us who love the games and make things for them, not with profit in mind, but the love of doing so. And then Mr. Vincent said, seems like too many people in this TTRPG space want everything for free.
Okay.
And then Devious Heart says, if you make a great product, I'll be the first in line with a wad of cash. I would like this. So this is getting to, I think, the heart of literally what we're talking about.
Yeah.
This conversation.
Let's throw a grenade in on that.
Go for it. John, do you want to start it off?
Man. I mean, so people should be passionate about what they do, but that doesn't make it wrong to ask for money for it. That's it. I'm a teacher. I love to teach. I absolutely love to teach. I love to teach kids how to write. I love to teach them how to read. I love to teach them how to analyze stories. I love to teach. I love the light bulb moments. I love that. I have a passion for that. I enjoy that with everything that I do. But if my boss called me up and there was like, hey, your contract for next year is for $0. We want you to come in and do this for free. No,
you're passionate about it, right?
I'm sorry. I love to teach. I absolutely love to teach. I love that. But I'm not doing it for free. And so it's okay to have a passion. It's okay to have passion projects that you would make, whether or not they sell. That doesn't make it morally wrong to ask for money for it.
So I agree with you.
That's where or what Mr. Vincent said. There are a lot of people who kind of just want everything for free. Oh, hi, baby. What are you here? My kids are going to join the live stream, but yeah, hey, sure. Look, hi. You say hi. Hi. Okay, but yeah, there are a lot of people who kind of want everything for free. That I mean, well, okay. If you want everything for free, then you're not really seeing any value in it. And you're trying to you're actually devaluing sort of everything by wanting everything for free. I mean, I have said a couple of times, I don't pay for this, I don't pay for that, I don't pay for that, but I do pay for some stuff. I paid full price for the TTRPG books I do have, because I saw value in that. But like, don't expect everything for free. Hey, baby girl, you want to go get mama? Go get mama.
I take a very fatalistic, idea. So when I think about this, and I want to bring up just a couple of these comments here. Mr. Vincent says, seems like too many people in this TTRPG space want everything for free. So this is a consumer mindset thing, right? So there are a lot of consumers in this space who don't want to buy stuff because there is free stuff available. That is totally fine. I don't have a huge problem with that. I do get, I would say, a decent amount of like what I would call like criticizing comments when I want to monetize something or sell something or whatever. And I think it's from the people who do want the stuff for free. Now, with that being said, I think Devious Hearts is making a great point here. If you make a great product, I'll be the first in line with a lot of cash. He also goes on to say, well, there's a couple other things. D. Park says passion takes time. Time equals money. Sure. He says, agreed. Do what you love. And if it happens to be able to get monetized, get some. And, so here's what I think. I'm going to spend my time doing stuff. Maybe I'll try to get paid for that stuff. Either I'm going to provide a lot of value, and that's actually where we come to Bruce D made a good comment here. Capitalism equals compensation for productivity. If I do productive things that are valuable, if they are valuable enough, people will pay for them, hence valuable. If they're not, nobody will, and my business will fail. So I have a strong incentive to provide value. And I think that's like where the line is. And this is part of the reason why I kind of love the capitalism game, is because, okay, this is a real metric of whether or not I'm providing value. If I actually do stuff and people buy it, this is awesome. It is true that I try to kind of provide value up front by creating content. Like I create YouTube content basically for free. There's ad revenue, but it doesn't pay a channel of my size. It's not like paying the bills per se. It pays like very baseline bills for the business, not for me. But like, it's like, okay, but then if you sell an ebook, it's like, okay, that's just added profit on top of that. Why sell the ebook? I want to create an ebook that helps me with my mission. I want to create an ebook that helps people even beyond what I'm doing with the YouTube. I want to create an ebook that has a profit margin good enough that it's worth my time to produce and distribute. If it is valuable, people will buy it, and this will be good for everyone. If it is not valuable, people either won't buy it or they'll buy it and be mad because they got ripped off, which is valid and fair. And then they should tell people, and that's how the market regulates itself, which is incentive for me to always think very carefully about what I make and sell, because I want it to actually be valuable so that people do not blackball me. And when I say me, I am talking about me, but I'm talking about any business or really any influencer too. Yeah. So anyway, boom, that's my kind of take on that conversation. Really value this conversation going on.
It like that sort of, capitalism, that competition creates value. Like it has to be valuable. Otherwise people are going to realize after getting ripped off one time, well, don't buy anything from that guy anymore. And so you have to push that value. I mean, like look at professional sports. They're like the best, whatever, like several thousand basketball players in the world. And that's why they're in the NBA. And you have all these people who wish they were in the NBA and could make a lot of money doing that. But like, quite honestly, they're not good enough, and they're built like me. They're not, 6'10" and incredibly athletic. They weren't cut out for it, and they didn't put the work in for it. And so that's where even among the third-party creators, you still have that drive to create a really good quality product that Yeah. Oh, that comment you have on the screen right now. Wanting stuff for free isn't wrong, but expecting everything for free is, well, that's entitlement, and that I'm very opposed to.
I agree, and I'm gonna speak up because me and Mr. Vincent have actually one-on-one talked about this very specific thing at great length, and I agree with him. There is an element, and this is just noise, right? There's just a noisy element to this, and every business deals with it. So it's like, if people don't want to buy a thing, that's like no problem. You shouldn't buy it if you don't want it. You should want it. But then like criticizing you because you're trying to sell it takes it to almost a level of like, it almost takes it to another level that is like, well, okay, just, don't buy it. And the only real thing I'm trying to figure out exactly what point I'm trying to make with that. Here's the point I'm trying to make with that. It's important for influencers and businesses to know, and this is actually a personal thing. It's important for them to know that there's going to be a certain amount of people in this space specifically, which is a passion space, who are going to resist attempts at monetization, and they're going to see monetization upfront as a sort of scam and money grab. I really do believe there's a certain percentage of people who see any attempt at monetization at being that. And I think that those people are generally very vocal. And I think that the reason they are vocal is because they're very passionate. And it's because this is a hobby with deep roots in like a non-corporate, non-big business space. And I think that has continued through the hobby, which I love about the hobby. And I have been in that zone and space many, many times. I also believe that and I'm going to say this is official. I'm going to say this. I would like to see a change in how we as consumers, and I'm saying this as a consumer because I do consume D&D products. I consume services. I'm signed up for subscriptions myself, like things I love. I consume other creators. I would like to see a change to where there is more support for the influencers you love who bring value to your life. Whether that be GM philosophy or whether that be like, whatever. There are musicians that I follow who I have donated money to help them fund their next tour to buy gas for their bus. Just because I listen to music on Spotify, I'm not getting anything when I pay for it. But every day, if I listen to music on Spotify and they give me a lot of value in my life, I think to myself, they have paid it forward. I listen to their music every single day. And I think that's a mentality shift that I personally would like to see. And actually, Bruce D actually made a comment exactly about this. And this is actually about the Philosophy Discord, but it provides a huge amount of intellectual value, but is almost zero compensation, which is great. And then it's like, but that's value forward. A lot of influencers do give value forward.
And, and I, looking at that in a similar industry, and I talked about video games before, that's how I kind of look at some free video games that have like paid coin packs and stuff in it. If I can, sorry about that, just had a cough fit.
No, you're fine.
If I can sit down and play a game that is offered for free, that the entry cost is free, and I can maybe put, an hour or two into it, at that point, I feel it has earned $1 or $2, depending on how you value something. And I had to look it up. I couldn't remember what the exact terms were. John mentioned this before, economic value versus social value. If there is something that costs $10 and you don't think it should, you would only pay $5 for whatever that is, or you expect that for free, then that's your own social value to that thing. The economic value is $10 because that's what it's been priced at. So if you end up buying that, you feel that you have lost $5. But if that economic value is $10 and you are valuing it at $20, that you would pay even more for it, you have that extra social value with it now because you feel like you got more out of it. But I think that then leads into the idea of people being willing to expect things for free, because people have low social values when it comes to certain things. And I think this is kind of the whole idea of this topic is, what is your social value on stuff? We can all look at an economic value and say, okay, if I'm making a book, if I'm putting time and effort into something, how much am I getting paid per hour? If I'm publishing something, what's the cost of paper? What's the cost of editors, artists, and shipping? But it's all going to be based on that social value. And D. Coupart basically, I think that's who it was who said about the Discord channel that that was Bruce D. Whenever he said about it being zero compensation, he obviously is valuing the social aspect of it considerably more, and it's just a net positive because there is no economic value. There's no paywall of getting into that Discord, and what's in there is awesome content, and it offers that value. And I think though that leads into what the next topic is though, because for folks that don't really put a lot of social value into stuff, can lead them down the rabbit hole of piracy. And I know from my youth, when I know a big aspect of that, pirating music or pirating video games or movies. Sure, I valued them socially. I wanted them. I would want to pay, but I didn't have the money. For some people, it's just that simple barrier of entry of, I don't have $5 or $10 to spend on this. I don't have, the $20 to go out and buy this game, or the $15 to buy this CD to get the music. But my social value is there. Like, I want this and I would pay it if I had it. And I think a lot of game developers nowadays have a very sympathetic viewpoint on that, where they would rather people, pirate their game and get use out of it and enjoy it, rather than putting everything behind such like DRMs and lock and key, because it is, at least they're getting some enjoyment. They can spread word of mouth, and then you can have those opportunities of, hey, if you did like this, maybe support us in a different way. Spread, tell your friends to buy it. Maybe, send us a donation, like with, GMP putting up the coffee link. We can Josh, you put out videos every day of the week, and you put out a lot of material, and there's a lot of stuff that the channel's doing, and it's all for free. Arguably, it's all for free. So being able to show that appreciation, to show that value, once that builds up, that is an opportunity for you to do that.
Yeah. There's a lot to that, as far as wanting something for free. Something that Josh had mentioned earlier about wanting to sort of see a return to that sort of, not a big corporation kind of thing, but like that return to, like the very first Dungeons and Dragons. That's something that they made in their basement, and they on typewriters, and that was a passion project, and it's kind of turned into a big corporate thing, and wanting to see a return to that is that idea of, financially, you vote with your wallet, right? So support the things that you want to support. Don't complain about getting ripped off by Hasbro. If you don't like Hasbro, then don't buy their products.
Yeah.
That's the thing. If you support or you have this, almost, visceral romantic connection to D&D specifically, fine, go for it. But if you don't, then don't buy it. And go for, your third party, or, play Pathfinder, play Tales of the Valiant, play something else. Support the things that you want to support, but you should support. And I think that realm of piracy is, that's something where Yeah, to my shame, I have to say, yeah, I pirated music when I was younger. I had 1 or 2 pirated video games. I forget exactly when it was. I think it was about 23 or 24, when it just suddenly hit me like a ton of bricks, and I was like, this is stealing. This isn't innocent. This isn't just like, oh, it was on the internet, it's free. No, that's stealing. That's something that somebody put their time, effort, and it has a copyright on it. It has those things on it. Piracy is stealing. Let's be 100% for real. This is something that is a product, and you're like, oh, they'll never miss it. This is something I got to say about piracy. People are like, oh, WotC's not going to care if I download the copy of the new PHB that somebody posted for free, because they already have billions of dollars. And I'm just poor and I can't afford it, so I'm going to download it for free. Okay, well, if there's an apple orchard that has thousands on thousands of apple trees, and but you just really want some apples, is it okay to steal a bushel of apples? They're never going to miss a bushel of apples. Yeah, it's still stealing. I'm sorry.
Sure.
I'm sorry, but it's still stealing. So like go to a food mart that sells apples for cheaper. You don't need the boutique apples. Go find a cheaper apple. Or, heaven forbid, plant an apple tree in your yard and grow your own apples. There are other solutions where you can still enjoy apples without having to steal apples. Okay, so like that sort of mentality of like, oh, well, I just really enjoy apples, but I can't afford these nice apples, so I'm going to go steal them. No, that's still not okay. That's still wrong. It's illegal and it's unethical. I would say it's immoral.
Now my point that oh, go ahead, Josh.
I wanted to just a comment, very spicy comment was dropped in response to your statement, John. Bad take. My man said, if you're hungry, don't get food. John, what do you have to say?
Work for it. Get a job.
Right. Fair.
I think, like, have a support system. Like, I'm not trying to be insensitive here, but I'm not saying like don't eat. I'm saying like we're not dealing with you don't get food, and it's just sort of a faulty analogy in this case, because it is talking about food. Yeah, you do need food, but we're not talking about shelter. We're not talking about clothing. We're not talking about food. We're talking about, like, let's suppose this is a boutique apple, or like different analogy. Let's say artwork, Artwork is, like, oh, but I really love art, so I'm just going to go run off a copy of this, really great piece of art. No, the artist is selling artwork and they need to make a living too. So like maybe the Apple thing is a bad analogy. So I'll consent to that.
I think there is
it still doesn't make it right to steal something just because you want it.
Yeah, I think I think that though you can make that a good analogy though, because the argument of you walk up to an apple orchard and you steal apples because you're hungry, that that is going into someone else's pocket and taking that from them in order to sustain yourself. There is though resources that are out there to aid people that do need that food. So you could go to a shelter, you could go to a food bank, you could, and I'm not going to stick on to, this very real, absolute topic that people have to deal with. But when it comes to the RPG industry, taking it back to that and sitting with the analogy, there's a difference between going in and like just stealing content, Googling, PDFs and just downloading them to your own, whims and desires, or going to a library where they might have these books available and you can rent them out and you can sit with them and take the notes that you need. Yeah. That is a big factor that I do myself. I have gigabytes and gigabytes of books that I have bought over the years that if there is somebody that I feel will get use out of it, I will share them a link to that, because that's the same as me going up to you, in real life and saying, hey, I think you would appreciate this book about proactive role playing. I can't physically hand you this if you're living in Arizona and I'm living in PA, or, even if you're, an hour away from me, it might not be possible for me to go and hand you this book. But if I have a digital version, and I can share you a Dropbox link and make it so that you can't download it, because I know that's a huge factor for folks that put out digital content, is they don't like when people are able to download it and reproduce it. And sure, somebody could put forth the effort, and they do, where they scan copies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I think there is value in that sharing network, but there's always going to be some kind of resource to aid with that. So I don't necessarily think the Apple analogy is a bad analogy. It's obviously, it's just,
well,
you can expand on it.
I'm not trying to trigger anyone's like hunger anxiety or anything here, but
Trigger.
Let's go
That's
for
fine.
let's go for if you go for a
trigger.
different one, yeah, there you go. If you go for another one, the books that people, back in the days before the internet, what if I just, back in the day, they would have called it Xerox. If I just run off a bunch of copies of, one of my favorite books, and I'm not even like paying for them, but I'm like asking people to pay, but I'm just like, hey, here, have a copy, have a copy, have a copy, have a copy. I'm sorry, but that author, that publisher, those distribution teams, all of those people, that's their livelihood. And I'm just like taking that away from them. If I accept that copy, or if I'm distributing that copy, that's that's still, that's wrong. That's stealing intellectual property. As somebody said, data is free. I'm sorry, but it's not. Artwork is that's somebody's intellectual property. It's not material. It's not material, but it's still somebody's intellectual property.
And arguably, data is free until someone stops paying for a server.
Right.
And
yeah,
a lot of cloud-based stuff, D&D Beyond, if you don't have internet access, you don't have access to that. And sure, there are offline options. You can get PDF versions of stuff that are available for offline. But if you're getting stuff from an online server, or even just for them to host it, for example, if the website that Josh publishes his Ashburrow books on suddenly stops doing stuff, that accessibility is gone, and he has to jump to a different venue, and you have to pay those fees in order to maintain those servers. That is where money in digital rights management comes into play. It's the servers hosting the data is not free.
No, none of it is free. Someone's paying for something. YouTube is paying for a lot of servers as we live stream, and then they sell ads.
Yeah,
and here's
how
the
many
thing,
videos are out there.
And here's the other thing: is there are still options. And people say like, well, I have a need, or I have this strong desire to play. That's not what the Freedom of Information Act means, by the way. Comment on the screen. Do your research, man. I'm sorry. Do your research.
Spice.
They no. They so
props.
about, like,
you actually distracted John with that one.
No, so the thing about like like, well, I have a strong desire for this. I really want to play TTRPGs, but I can't afford it. I'm not trying to be unsympathetic to that, but let's look at there are options for you to still play things for free. The 2014 basic rules are a free PDF download. Supposedly there's a basic rules out there for even the 2024. It's a brand new rule set. I found one. I don't know if it's legal or not, so I haven't downloaded it. I'm gonna do a little research before I do, but I've seen a basic rules version of even the 2024 rules. There are free options. If you really want to play TTRPGs, there are ways to do it without having to pay a ton of money. Don't be so entitled that you're going to go steal intellectual property in order to do so. You can play Shadow Dark basically for free. The quick start rules are free. There are random roll tables out there for free. There are everything you need to play, you can do for free. Owlbear Rodeo is free. Dice rollers are free. You don't even have to go buy dice. Okay, dice rollers are free. Owlbear Rodeo is free. Basic rules are free. What else do you need? What else do you need? I'm sorry, but there are ways for you to play without having to steal somebody's labor that they are, if you want to talk about entitlement, they are entitled to receive compensation for that labor. Are they overcharging? Maybe. That doesn't give you a right to steal. That never makes it okay to steal. I'm sorry. I'm done. I'm gonna start yelling. You know. So
all right. So now with that being said, I feel like we're reaching a good segue into maybe the next topic here. Before we jump into that, I want to just give a shout out to everyone who supports the channel on the Ko-Fi. Mr. Vincent is a Ko-Fi supporter. Thank you, Mr. Vincent. I've had a couple other people sign up for the Ko-Fi. With that being said, so we had kind of a conversation about this particular podcast being like kind of a punk rockish podcast. This is why I have not actually pitched the Ko-Fi. We've mentioned a couple times to thank the supporters, but we're still in deliberation about how to potentially monetize this particular podcast so that it actually basically helps the people who are involved to feed their families. Me and Calvin John, at least, and there's probably going to be more counselors in the future who jump into this podcast, other members and people who want to get involved. We're planning to make it a thing every Saturday morning where we get really back to the roots, free thinking podcast. So I don't actually plan to pitch the GM Philosophy Ko-Fi on this particular channel, but if you want to support us today, if you would smash that like button and smash the subscribe button and join the Discord, those are all free things you can do to help support this particular branch of GM Philosophy. Basically, this is the free press part. I don't even have ads enabled on this video this morning. I did that on purpose as maybe kind of a statement to just us as and to the council about what we want to do with this Saturday morning broadcast. I think that having these kind of conversations is very valuable. So boom, there's a little, as we come around the half hour mark there, let's go into what looks like our last subtopic.
And I think we've actually kind of hit a lot of this, as we've gone along. So this might be a shorter one. But with all of this in mind, are indie content creators justified in paywalling homebrew mechanics and settings, or are they just following along with that corporate greed aspect that we brought up earlier? Again, full transparency from my own perspective. I'm a content creator in my own channel in my own right, and I have a community that I make homebrew content for that I do not put behind any paywall. I do have a Patreon. It's a $1 Patreon. Nothing that I put on that Patreon is locked behind that $1 paywall. I only have that there because I had a few folks that were in my community that wanted to help support me in some way and just offer that thanks and that, financial support. And I'll be real, not a lot of people sign up for, I think maybe like 3 people or something like that. And most of that money goes to paying for other Kickstarters, considering I support, or not Kickstarters, sorry, other Patreons, considering I support other Patreon creators. But one of the things that I really stick to is that nothing that I make when it comes to homebrew subclasses or races or magic items or whatever I create is going to be something that I'm going to charge people for. It's been in topics in the GMP Discord before of paying for paying a dungeon master to run a game or being a professional dungeon master. And I know that we have a lot of those folks in the community, and I have never felt right in the concept of charging somebody for my services as a dungeon master. And it might just be a philosophy thing in my own respect. I I look at D&D as a hobby, and the way that I perceive it is, if I start tying money to my hobby, then it becomes a job. And when it becomes a job, it becomes more stressful. It becomes, far more, far less of just a thing that I'm doing because I enjoy it and something because I feel like I have to, in a way. And that's a personal thing for me. And that's something that I have had to struggle with over the years, because I would like to financially support myself, or at least financially support some of the ventures that I do. Can I, sell content so that I can pay for a book that I want, to review or something like that. But I personally don't like paywalling stuff, because there are folks out there that don't have the expendable income to put that out there, and I want my reach as a content creator to hit as many people as possible. So I don't want people to have to go through those workarounds of pirating it, or trying to find somebody that's willing to send them a copy. It's definitely one of those factors for me that I've had to deal with for a long time.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with offering things for free either, because a lot of people, that's a barrier for them, where you said, like, this is a hobby, you want to do this because you enjoy it, not because it's a second job. That doesn't mean it's right or wrong to to actually put things behind a paywall. This is just a different sort of mentality. People do things for different reasons. But that's one of those things, and formal apology if my Apple analogy was too spicy for some people. I love trees, and I love specifically apple trees. I like to take apple seeds out of my apples and plant them. So I'm really sorry if that triggered anybody. Just there. I just the piracy thing got me. No, but like charging for third party content, are you justified in that? If you're trying to turn that into a side hustle, if you're trying to turn that into a little bit of extra income, if you're trying to that there's a lot of there's different mentalities for that. If you want to say, like, hey, here's an opportunity, if you want to throw me $1, here's an opportunity to do that. Nothing wrong with that either. So that's part of what I said before about with the Kickstarters and everything. Third party content, whether it's free or paid, or like barely paid, $1 a month, that keeps the bigger corporations honest. Like, quite honestly, if WotC was the only company producing, if there was no Kobold Press, if there was no Paizo, if there was no Games Workshop, if there was no third-party content, the prices would be way worse. And you want to talk about exploitation, that's when we start to see it. And so people like Kelf, who are putting stuff out there for free, and third-party companies, smaller companies putting stuff out there for very affordable, like GM Philosopher, or actual competitors like Paizo and Kobold Press. These are all part of keeping that market honest, so to speak, and keeping it competitive. Are third-party, publishers justified? Absolutely. And if people don't like it, they won't pay for it.
Right.
So, produce quality content. Maybe people will pay for it. Maybe they won't, and maybe you don't get any money for, 10 years. You create a bunch of stuff and you put it out there on DriveThruRPG and nobody buys a single thing. You're like, okay, fine. Then I throw it on my blog for free, and now the world gets it for free. And that's fine, but don't do something expecting money for it. Like there's always that little risk of being a third party creator. If you really want it to be a side hustle, you still need to view it as a hobby, because otherwise you'll burn out very, very quickly if you're trying to make money in the indie space. Yeah. It's a bad place to make money.
So
it's very risky, so to speak. No critique to GM Philosopher, and I think you actually do have a business plan, but there's that there is that inherent risk, I think.
Oh no, there's a big risk. Okay, so Kelf, you said something earlier, and I wanted to just comment on it real quick about, and you actually, let's see, I think you might have you responded to something with a comment, but basically you had said you like to create things. Awesome. you would love to be able to maybe make a living off the awesome stuff you create, but then that brings a whole nother dimension, which is like the business stuff dimension, which does encroach on it, right? Because it almost makes it feel totally different. So this is a really interesting thing I've observed in my own like business. Like for a while I was experimenting with putting ad spots for my ebooks in videos, and I've experimented with this off and on. And I realized something. When I put an ad spot before the 10-minute mark for an ebook that is at least somewhat relevant to the video, I sell a certain amount of them every time I release a video like that. I also get a certain amount of people complaining about the ads, right? So it's like, now, so the people complaining about the ads is a feel bad. It's like, well, okay, I don't want people to have a bad experience. I don't want this to feel bad. Like, I don't want to make a video and then have people hate on it. And I feel like I'm not creating a good thing. That kind of ruins the video publishing thing for me from an artist perspective, if I care at all about comments. But at the same time, I've also experimented with putting the ad at the end of the video. I sell literally about 1/10 as many ebooks if I do that. But that's what everyone asks me to do, right?
Yeah.
So isn't that so interesting? So there is a lot you have to sacrifice to turn a thing you love into a business. You almost have to push yourself into places that you may not want to go, almost emotionally.
True.
For me, that's what it equates to. There's a lot of things about business that start to feel dirty to me. Asking for money, for me, inherently, if I didn't know better, it could feel dirty because I love the things I'm doing. I want to say to everyone, I'll do everything for free for you. But then it would become a very bad time very quickly in my life. You know what I'm saying? Like, as my family runs out of food and we cannot pay the electric bill. So anyway, Kelf, I totally hear what you're saying. And I think that is, for creators, I think that is a very real struggle at some point. Not everyone's going to probably deal with the things I'm describing. Like, those are just my personal things I struggle with. But I think that for everyone at some point, it does become oh God, this actually isn't that fun. Like, I like the creating part, but there comes a point where there is not fun stuff to do.
Yeah. And I also think one of the things, and this is, again, I'm going to talk, really candidly and personally about this.
Go for it.
One of the things about me specifically is that I have a lot of things going on. I take on a lot of different, factors. I have a kid, I have a wife, I work a full-time job. And one of the big reasons why I don't like to monetize my hobbies is because if I need to step away from those, if I need to move away from that factor or that part of what I'm doing to focus on something else in that time, having money tied to it makes it so much harder to do that. That's a kind of a fickle thing for me. Is it's kind of like paying for a monthly subscription or a subscription that you pay monthly instead of yearly. When you pay that yearly fee, you have invested a lot more money and a lot more expectation that you're going to use that for the entire year. But you're going to pay a little bit more if you do it monthly, but you can also drop it whenever you need it. And if you look back on it and you think, I should have just done it for the year, saved myself, a couple extra bucks. But it's that safety net in a way that I personally feel when I don't attach money to the hobby that I'm doing, of saying I can walk away from this if I need to. And unfortunately, I had to actually. Last year, at the beginning of the year, I started up a project where I was making monthly homebrew content that all had like a central theme. January was all about snow and winter and the Arctic, and I made a ranger subclass and a Yetikin race and an Arctic adventurer background. And I wanted to do every month was a different theme, and I got up until about April or May, I believe it was. And I had a lot of things going on in my life. I just had a baby at that time. And so I just kind of put my hands up and I said, hey, this is a little much for me. I can't sustain this. And I walked away from it. And because I wasn't tying any money to that, or because I was not, building up this expectation of, I'm going to have this and people are paying monthly for this content, it didn't feel nearly as bad for me to walk away from that. But in the other direction, and I think kind of the point that you are making, Josh, when you do tie money to that, you hold yourself more accountable. Again, because I don't, it's something I don't feel bad walking away from or dropping. But if I had set up a Patreon where for say $5 a month, folks were able to get those pieces of content, and for that $5 every month, you were going to get this monthly thing. And I had, 5 or 6 people that signed up for it. That $30 could have been the difference for me, or that $20 could have been the difference for me of saying like, no, this is worth it. This is worth sticking to it and taking a week or so off, but continuing to push forward with it. And that's a personal thing that I've just dealt with for the last year, is contemplating that mentality of, hey, if I did tie this to a financial stake, would I have put more effort into it, or would have I attempted to maintain it?
Yeah, that's a super valid question. And sometimes as a creator, most of us start at 0. So there's a lot of working for free before we get to a point where we can charge anything. Which is like, then that's hard and exhausting, actually. It's very, like I high key feel like waking up every day, making YouTube videos, making the ebooks that I make, and this and this and that. This is actually way more demanding than going to a job, because even though it's what I love, I have to wake up and say, I have to do this today.
Yeah.
I have to wake up and I have to make myself do it. I just know that if I don't do it, I'm not going to deliver great value. I'm not going to build a business that's worth investing in for anybody. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, if I want it to be successful, I have to do that. But at the same time, it's not easy. Most days it's not easy. And I also know that, and then you also have to push through that, at whatever point, maybe money makes it weird for you. Mm-hmm. You have to push past that, because if that gets you hung up, then you will never make any money. So it's very hard, very hard.
Yeah.
I had an older gentleman I used to work with at one of my stores who ran his own business for a while, and we actually talked about that topic. And he gave me this great quote that said, "Everyone hates their boss until they are their own boss, and then they hate their boss even more." Because
that's a good quote.
Yeah, when you're working for somebody else, you're like, oh man, this guy's just pressuring me and putting all this on me, and but I got to get it done. But whenever it's yourself, it's like, you have to have that motivation. You have to have that ability to say, I need to get this done, and you're the one having to put that pressure on yourself.
Yeah.
I think that's definitely where I unfortunately lack some motivation in, I'm the kind of person where it's like, I'll go up to my team members, because I'm a manager in retail, and I'll go up to my team members if they're having, a rough day, or if there's not much going on. I'm like, hey, relax, just, run the register, like make sure the shelves are nice, but, don't stress yourselves. And when I get home, sitting myself in front of a project that I need to do, I'm that guy where I can pat myself on the back. It's like, okay, go take 5 minutes, go sit down in the chair and, watch some YouTube or something. And then, an hour passes and I haven't completed anything.
Yeah.
It's so easy to do.
Yeah.
All right. So with that being said, I feel like we've completed that topic. Let's give our closing thoughts here. We're approaching the 2-hour mark. This might be a great place to cut it off. Let's start. Who wants to start with your closing thoughts?
I guess I can jump in there.
Right,
so hitting the main topic of, is the tabletop RPG industry a scam? I personally do not think it is. I think there are some groups in the community that do charge for things that might seem like luxuries. But and conveniences, but at the end of the day, you are in control of your wallet. You are the one that can type those numbers in or pull out a piece of cash and hand it to somebody to get those services. Something like digital dice on D&D Beyond is something that people complain about. I can assuredly tell you, I have bought digital dice on D&D Beyond because I think they're cool. It's something that I'm willing to spend money on, and I'm okay with that because this is the hobby that I love, and I want to spend money in it because I want to support creators, and I want to support this hobby so that there is an industry that exists. I have my own issues with it here and there, but at the end of the day, I do not think it's a scam. And I think that the more people that are willing to support it and that are willing to put more time and effort and money into it are the ones that are keeping it alive.
I mean,
there you go, Johnny. Pop that comment.
There's the threat. Hey, DQ Park. No, I'm not gonna bring it up unless it's to say that I love apple trees. No, so here's my closing thought, my closing take. I agree 100% with Kelf. It's not a scam. It is a business. But it's not a scam. Do scams happen within that realm of business? Sure. But they happen in every realm of every business. In every area of life, you will find scammers. Anytime you find money, you'll find people looking to make a quick buck off the suckers. That being said, it can feel like a scam very quickly if you have FOMO. If you have fear of missing out, it will feel like a scam very quickly because you're like, man, they expect me to pay for this and they expect me to pay for this and I got to go buy that system and I need that supplement and hold up, wait a minute. No, you don't. No, you don't. You don't need to buy D&D and Pathfinder and Shadowdark and Tales of the Valiant and no, buy the system that works for your table. Now, if you find enjoyment in reading through every single system, and piecemealing stuff together, go for it. That's fine. But there really is a TTRPG for every budget. There is free. You can get Shadowdark Quick Start. You can get Basic Rules D&D of several editions.
Yeah.
Free. Basic Fantasy is free. Owlbear Rodeo, VTTs, Owlbear Rodeo and Roll20. You can use both of those for free. Dice, you can get dice rollers on your phone or on your computer for free. You can, there are so many ways that you can do it for free. There are so many ways you can do it for cheap. And there are so many ways you can, like a lot of people, make, although an apple cannon sounds like a great idea. Mark, you are distracting left and right, man. I'm thinking a potato gun that shoots apple pies at people. Oh man, it's delicious. But there are ways to do it. Like some people spend so much money on their hobbies. Some people like sports cars are their hobbies. And there's free, there's cheap, there's moderate, there's super expensive. Find the budget. Find what works for you. Don't be afraid of, I didn't buy that system. I'll never experience that system. That's okay. How much time do you have to be playing, 14 games a week? Some people might. Okay, then go for it. But, for most of us, you don't let fear of missing out make you have a perceived scam in your mind. Be like, oh, cool, they made a new edition, but I play Shadowdark, but I play Pathfinder. You don't need to go buy the new 5e books or 5.24. You don't actually need them unless you do. So, and 100%, once again, just reiterating what Kelf said, buy what you want to buy, but support what you want to support. And that's the thing. Don't let your FOMO make you think it's a scam. It is a business. Take it or leave it. Some people are going to be mad about that. Some people are all for it. It's a business. You can't get around it, but it's not a scam. You will find scams within it, but it's as a whole, it's not.
To that point, because I FOMO is Kickstarter to me is FOMO. Kickstarter to me is FOMO. It's this whole thing of you have 30 days to sign up for this thing and then it's gone forever. And it's like, no, it's not. Don't fall into the trap. They have a website. You can buy it later.
I didn't know you had such a good radio voice.
Oh, this is my announcement. Yeah, no, that's my announcement. My narrator.
Well, we're gonna have to redo the intro because we did that.
There you. I absolutely did not want to step on your toes at the beginning, but I was so tempted to start this off with "Good morning, Game Master."
No, you should totally. We'll do it next time. We'll do it next time. But okay, so my closing thoughts here. Okay, so is the TTRPG industry a scam? I say no. And I think actually I would say I have kind of maybe a different takeaway from this than what people might expect. I really believe in this very specific industry, TTRPG industry, of which D&D is really the big dog, and has been around for a long time, starting with Gary Gygax in his garage. I really believe that this very specific industry has a very unique trait of having people who really believe in the free grassroots. I want to play it in my garage. I shouldn't have to spend a bunch of money to do it. And I do feel like the businesses in this industry have been at war with that mentality, trying to make corporate level dollars in a challenging way. And I do feel like there's been a lot of pushback on it by the community at large. Some of it deserved, some of it maybe well-intentioned, but maybe it doesn't result in like a good outcome. I personally believe my life has benefited greatly from Wizards of the Coast, which is the biggest of the biggest when we come to talk about businesses that are selling TTRPG products. I'm very thankful that we've come to the 2024 Player's Handbook. I love that handbook. I'm glad I bought it. And I will buy the next one they put out. And it's just how it goes. And I won't be upset about it. And I don't feel like this hobby is one that I don't want to invest money in. I'm not going to buy everything. If I bought everything that I thought was cool, I would run out of money very quickly. I have to pick and choose, but that's fine for me. Is it a scam? No. Are there a lot of like kind of weird cash grabs? In this industry, there are some weird cash grabs, but I'm going to be really honest with you. I also spend a lot of time in the digital marketing world. There are so many more scummy cash grabs in that world. Like there's so many. That world is so gross. So like in the TTRPG world, I look around and I'm like, oh, maybe there's like one or two, but really it's just people making cool stuff and they want to sell it. That's really what it feels like to me, which surprises me when people say it's a cash grab. I kind of look around, I'm like, what are you like? Because I'm so used to like the digital, like I've bought courses in the digital marketing world, but everyone is trying to sell you a course in the digital. Everyone wants to sell you a course for $699 in the digital marketing world. They want to sell you their Podia course, and then they want you to join their membership for $299 a month so that you can learn how to be a six-figure influencer and da 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 da. That is one of the scummiest markets I've ever seen, and I've been in digital marketing since 2009. And so it's like when I look at this industry, it is so much more real than that industry. I've thought to myself before, I've kicked around a tiny little idea. In the future, should I do like a course for people who want to start YouTube about TTRPG? And then I instantly am like, no, I don't really like, that's where I'm at right now with it. I'm not saying I'll never do that, but right now I associate that so strongly with all the weird crap I see in the digital marketing space that I kind of be like, no, I'd rather make another adventure module and just be done with it. So that's kind of my kind of takeaway 2 cents of it. Just to clarify, I'm not saying I would never make a course or something like that. I'd be more likely to make a course for like GMs who want to get started GMing or something altogether, everything said, I believe that the TTRPG industry is actually way cleaner and cooler and more chill than most of them in terms of like cash grabs and scammy stuff. I think a very small percentage of the stuff that actually goes on is actually scammy. And I've seen some, D Coupar that is so real. That is such a I don't know how much you guys know about like the whole dating coach scene kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
And like the alpha male type thing and like the red pill stuff. That is a scummy industry. That is a scummy industry. So yeah, that's a very real comment.
I
Anyway.
love those videos of like you see like a lineup of guys on the beach getting yelled at by some dude in boxer shorts, where it's like these guys paid $1,000 for this.
Yeah, man. And I'm all for self-development. I don't get me wrong, I'm all for self-development, but that stuff does get weird and cash grabby. That gets very cash grabby. Anyway,
Yeah.
so and I'm not trying to like dump on that. All I'm saying is that when I compare this industry to like other industries I see, I don't understand sometimes why people say cash grab. It's like I feel like the people in this industry haven't seen a rotten cash grab compared to some of the stuff that's out there. But that's not super valid either, because a lot of these people aren't spending time in that industry, and that's just me because I happen to have overlap there because I am a digital marketer by trade. So boom, those are my closing thoughts. At the end of the day, I really do love this. I love this industry and I love the people in it. And I love playing D&D. And that's what it's all about. The best thing that could ever happen for any of us in any way, shape, or form in this space is for a cool person to run a cool game of TTRPG at their game table or on digital and have a fun time doing it. That's what it's all about at the end of the day. And I like to tell myself that every day to keep myself grounded in like what really matters. And I think that is what really matters in the space. And it's a good thing. It's a very good thing that people do it. Mm-hmm. All right, shabam. Well, that's going to wrap up this episode of Good Morning Game Masters. In our next episode, you can expect, if he's available, Kelf to announce it instead of me. And we will be coming up with a lot of good plans. There's going to be a lot of cool stuff coming down the pipe. So thank you all for tuning in. For those of you who will be watching this later, hey, come back and see us sometime live on Saturday mornings. We'll catch you all in the next one. Roll some D100s for us.
Heck yeah.